Marine spatial planning is best understood by looking at how it will work in the real world. Let's use False Bay as an example. With its proximity to Cape Town, this bay has been of socio-ecological importance since the first trading ships arrived in the Cape from Europe in the 17th century. Long before this, it was used by the Khoisan hunter-gatherers, as evident from shells midden that are found in the area. Let's find out more about this bay.
False Bay is a large bay in the southwest of South Africa. It covers approximately 1,000 kilometers squared. If you face north, Cape Point is west and Cape Hamklip east. Part of the bay is bordered by the city of Cape Town and includes formal and informal residential areas and industrial areas. It also includes part of Table Mountain National Park Marine Protected Area and the whole of the Helderberg Marine Protected Area. There are 11 relatively small estuaries discharging into the bay, including the Zandvlei estuary, the largest in the bay. The water quality discharging from the estuary can have significant impacts on the nearby recreational beach Muizenberg. False Bay is a unique and important ecoregion. Upwelling-induced winds move surface waters offshore and bring up cool, nutrient-rich water which supports a rich biodiversity. Occasional intrusions of warm water from the Agulhas Current and warming of the shallow waters in the bay creates a unique marine environment that includes species characteristic of the warmer Agulhas Current and cooler Benguela Current at the edges of their range. It is home to iconic kelp forests, an important breeding area for many species, and has a high number of endemics, species that occur nowhere else. It is also home to a number of charismatic species, including 22 different shark species, the African penguin, and migrating dolphins and whales that are important ecologically and economically as an attraction for tourists. It is home to several overexploited fisheries, including rock lobster, abalone, keelback, white steenbras, and South Africa's national fish, the galjoen. The rocky shore environments, famous for the highest species diversity and density of limpet species in the world, are also under threat from marine invasive species. Large parts of the shore have been completely transformed with the introduction of Mediterranean black mussel, as well as other invasive species. Although that has been positive for the African black oyster catcher, who have taken advantage of this abundant food source. The mussel negatively impacts native species, which have similar ecological requirements. False Bay is also a busy bay from a human perspective. Simonstown is home to the largest naval base in South Africa. The area is important for recreational, small-scale and commercial fisheries, with harbours at Kalk Bay and Gordons Bay. It is an important residential and tourist destination. The ocean space is used recreationally for many activities, including surfing, sailing, diving and paddling, and the beaches are especially popular in the summer months for swimming. False Bay is estimated to generate over 900 million rand or $63 million per year in direct expenditure by domestic and overseas tourists when not in a global pandemic. The busy nature of the bay unfortunately means that the marine ecosystem is threatened by overfishing, various types of pollution including plastic waste, sewage, industrial discharges, as well as polluted water from stormwater drains and coastal development.
So as you have seen, False Bay is important not only from an ecological perspective, but from a socio-economic one. So how do we use marine spatial planning to integrate the activities and the needs of different stakeholders, economic sectors, while at the same time reducing or eliminating conflicts between the stakeholders themselves and between human activities and biodiversity? Let's start by having a look at the stakeholders. First, there are a number of government agencies with different mandates, including the National Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, the City of Cape Town, South African National Parks, Cape Nature, the South African Navy and the South African Maritime Safety Authority. Second, there are a number of economic sectors or user groups such as shipping, small-scale and commercial fisheries, tourism and recreation, residents, and associated infrastructure, including infrastructure for waste disposal. Third, there is a strong civil society presence in the area with NGOs, academics, environmental programs active in the Bay. It is important to note that while these activities of some of these user groups are comparable, some are not. There will need to be trade-offs and compromises. It is therefore also important to be clear about the needs of these stakeholders and to engage with them meaningfully from as early as possible in the planning process. Let's find out more about the activities and stakeholders in the False Bay.
Fishing in False Bay looks quite different to what it did in the late 1600s, when whaling, penguin egg and guano harvesting and sealing occurred in the bay. These all stopped in the late 20th century. Benthic trawling, purse-seining and gill netting were also banned in the bay to prevent unsustainable fishing and damage to the seafloor. But illegal gill net fishing continues in parts of the bay. There's also some conflict between seals and fishers, which can sometimes lead to the illegal shooting of seals. The commercial fisheries currently in the area include lionfish, rock lobster and the traditional beach seine netting, otherwise known as trekking. Line fishing mostly includes snook, yellowtail, keelback and white stumptoes. In the 1990s, rapid declines in the lionfish species meant that the commercial fishery had to be reduced from over 600 licensed boats to about half that. Many of the fisheries have subsequently started to stabilize, although the white stumptoes continues to decline. There's an experimental octopus fisheries operating in False Bay, but the high incidence of whale entanglements created controversy and the fishery needed to find ways to mitigate this, including seasonal closures and gear changes, which have so far been successful, and the fishery has now resumed. Recreational fishing is now the largest fishery in False Bay in terms of the number of people participating. This includes both shore and boat-based fishing. There are conflicts between recreational fishers and the traditional beach seine fishers and small-scale fishers. The beach seine fishers have been operating in False Bay for over 300 years. It has been under criticism as a result of the inedible bycatch and juvenile bycatch caught in these nets and its potential to damage the seabed. From over 100 operators in the 70s, there has been only 5 licensed beach seiners now. The reduced fishing effort impacted on the accessibility of the small-scale fishers to resources, and there are attempts to address this by providing the traditional fishing communities with legal access to near-shore resources through the new small-scale fisheries policy. Small-scale fishers also target rock lobster and abalone, the two most important fished invertebrates in South Africa. Increasing levels of poaching and changes in the marine environment have threatened the sustainability of these species. This has led to the closure of the recreational abalone fishery. Kelp is also harvested and used as feed for farmed abalone and as a plant growth stimulant. There is potential for expansion of this industry in False Bay.
So one of the most charismatic birds in False Bay is obviously the African penguin. The colony at Boulders Beach was actually started by 2 pairs that decided to breed there in 1985. As the colony grew, it was then incorporated into Table Mountain National Park. It's a Boulders Beach penguin colony that we know now. The African penguin is actually endangered. It only breeds on the coast of Namibia and South Africa. In South Africa, Boulders Beach is actually one of the 2 mainland colonies that we have. And there's a lot of reasons for the birds being endangered. One of the main reasons is the lack of fish. Birds struggle to find enough food. That is partly due to environmental changes, but also due to industrial fishing. They obviously have to deal with climate change, which affects their food sources, but also their breeding habitat. Obviously there's pollution, there's oil spills, all these different issues. Boulders Beach, being a mainland colony, obviously has its threats on its own. So being on land, we obviously have issues with residential dogs and cats. It can attack birds. We have land-based predators like mongoose, we have caracals coming down from Table Mountain, and then we obviously have the marine predators like kelp gulls and fur seals. And then there's cars, there's people, there's disturbance, so all these things that need to be managed. The entire penguin colony in Simonstown does have a huge economic impact on the communities. In 2019, there were over 800,000 people just visiting Boulders Beach in the penguin colony. That generated an income of over $6 million and created jobs for over 900 people in the community, be it from bus drivers, tour operators, restaurants, tour guides, all these people. So it is very important to preserve this colony in Simonstown. Because the birds have now moved out of basically the Table Mountain National Park area into residential area and municipal areas, the city of Cape Town has really stepped up in also managing the penguins in the colony, and together with SENCOP we are currently employing 5 rangers on the ground in Simonstown that assist the city of Cape Town with managing these birds in residential areas and in the open public spaces, but they also assist SENParks with the management in the colony. As much as most people like African penguins, there's obviously also people that do not want them in their garden. They are messy, they are smelly, they do make noise in the middle of the night. So all this needs to be managed when a bird like this is breeding in an urban environment.
False Bay includes Helderberg Marine Protected Area, a small MPA proclaimed in 2000 that protects sandy and rocky ecosystems that are of spiritual importance to many. It also includes part of the much larger Table Mountain National Park Marine Protected Area. This park is a mixture of no-take and controlled areas and is designed to protect areas of ecological importance and cultural significance, including numerous wrecks and areas of importance to fishers. The MPA provides areas for rich biodiversity that attract snorkelers and divers. The no-take areas provide a refuge for the potential rebuilding of populations including rock lobster, abalone and various lionfish. The rich biodiversity of the bay also provides an important resource for environmental education, research and tourism, including boat-based whale and dolphin watching and shark cage diving.
Marine spatial planning is not an easy process. It is difficult to plan in 3-dimensional space and account for changes over time. And we need to account for climate change and ecological regime shifts, human perceptions and traditional practices. So what are the potential conflicts and synergies for False Bay? Firstly, there's potential for conflict between marine protected areas and small-scale fishers. But if there's clear communication about the potential benefits of protected areas for small-scale fishers, and solutions are co-designed with fishers to incorporate their needs, we can minimize conflict and therefore hopefully reduce illegal fishing and promote sustainable fishing livelihoods, even increasing fish availability in areas near MPAs as a result of fish populations increasing and the so-called spillover effect. Secondly, the population of Cape Town has almost doubled since the 1980s. The growing urban population means that there's a growing amount of waste, including plastic pollution, sewage and other pollutants that needs to be dealt with. In the absence of sufficient infrastructure, a lot of this can end up in the ocean, and there are already concerns about water quality and impacts on tourism and recreational use of the ocean space. So how do we mitigate this? Third, False Bay has already been identified as a potential refuge for ships in distress. In emergency situations, it is vital for safety at sea to have planned places of refuge, but there are potential ecological risks if there are oil spills or the ship breaks up. Fourth, people will pay a premium to live close to the ocean, but the low-lying areas and proximity to floodplains associated with estuaries is a risk to coastal developments, especially in the light of climate change, increased coastal erosion, and sea level rise. City planners therefore need to consider financial, health, and safety risks, which are likely to increase over time. And lastly, one of the more complex and less predictable issues is when there are large-scale shifts in the environment. For instance, a change of the distribution of the preferred species of fishes, or a charismatic predator like the African penguin. Here, adaptive management can play a crucial role by having the flexibility to adjust protected areas appropriately. A change in the species that occur in the bay can also impact tourism, as has been the case with the tourism operators that have built their entire businesses around the great white sharks that used to occur in large numbers in the bay, but have become increasingly scarce. Tourism operators have had to adapt to this change very quickly. New developments don't always have to be to the exclusion of existing activities. It just needs planning and negotiation and to remember that the ecology, in our case False Bay, is also a stakeholder that needs to be considered. Marine spatial planning is all about adaptive management. It needs to be consistently revisited and adapted. So you shouldn't expect to have a perfect plan on the first try. You need to build relationships with stakeholders and communicate with them in an effective and sensitive way. And how to do this will differ from country to country and community to community. You also need to look ahead and anticipate future activities and changes in technology. What human activities will be happening in False Bay in 10 or 50 years from now? Large-scale aquaculture maybe? Offshore wind farms? Or oil and gas extraction? Or something we can't even imagine yet? What will the future of False Bay look like?